There are various fire hazards and other potential types of emergencies lurking in our plants. Your plant has an emergency response plan in place, and it is reviewed each year. This plan includes procedures on what to do in case of a fire or in case of weather emergencies, and you'll be provided site-specific training on those procedures. Your plant will have a practice drill so that everyone knows what the correct response is. In a fire emergency, you must evacuate the building immediately. Make sure the equipment you operate is disengaged or powered off before leaving, and then proceed to the nearest exit. Once you and your fellow associates have assembled at the designated muster area, your manager or supervisor will take an accounting of who is present to ensure all workers have evacuated. So don't leave this area until your manager has indicated it is safe to do so. Means of egress or way to the exit must always be clear. If you happen to notice debris, clutter, or materials in front of an exit door, do your part to maintain exits clear by moving them, or let your supervisor know. Doors should never be locked in the closed position. This is a major OSHA violation. There are fire hazards just about everywhere. There are combustible materials such as pellets and flammable liquids or gases such as propane that can be fuel for a fire started by a simple spark or due to poor work practices. This is why smoking is not allowed in our plants. If you must smoke, you are required to do so only in designated areas outside equipped with proper butt cans. Proper disposal of cigarette butts is important for fire prevention. Fires can be put out or extinguished by fire extinguishers. Pretty much all of the fire extinguishers in your facility are the multi-purpose ABC type, meaning that they can extinguish fires due to combustible materials, flammable liquids, and electrical components. Your plant does not expect you to be an expert in fighting fires, and you should understand portable fire extinguishers are only to be used against the beginning stages of a fire. Any fire larger than a small trash can, let's say, or if you're not sure what to do, you need to abandon the fire, dial 911, and evacuate. Fire extinguisher inspections are part of the normal routine at your plant. You may not be involved with this process, but you can do your part by making sure that all fire extinguishers in your work area are kept clear and accessible at all times. If you notice any defect or concern with the fire extinguisher, let your supervisor or manager know. Again, it is not the expectation by the company that you freely fight fires. However, if you are confident in picking up a fire extinguisher, you need to remember the simple pass method of using it. P for pulling the pin, A for aiming at the base of the fire, S for squeezing the handle, and S for sweep at the base of the fire. If you suffer an accident or injury, a supervisor or manager must be notified immediately. This is so you receive prompt medical assistance and to complete an accident report. There are first aid cabinets located in the plant or break room. They are inspected to ensure they are stocked properly. Remember that if you suffer even a first aid type of injury, you must report it. Your plant may be equipped with an AED or automatic external defibrillator. Only trained employees should handle this type of equipment. Also, your plant has designated first aid responders who have been trained on rendering basic first aid. Providing first aid is considered voluntary in our plants, but training on bloodborne pathogens and donning personal protective equipment before helping an injured fellow coworker is required. The Bureau of Labor Statistics states that falls is the third leading cause of death in the workplace, after over-the-road vehicle accidents and workplace violence. Over 200,000 workers are seriously injured each year due to a fall in the workplace. Our employees are exposed to a fall, either onto the same level or from one level to the lower one like the ground below. The falls onto the same level are caused by slips like oil or water on the floor, or from trips due to poor housekeeping. OSHA says that if you are exposed to more than a 4-foot fall, fall protection or prevention is required, either through guardrails, barriers, or fall arrest system. At our plants, it is prohibited to climb up to these levels without fall protection. The average person picks up their feet only about 1/4 of an inch off the ground. Some people shuffle their feet while others pick them up. This is why any crack, missing tile, or bump on the floor could cause a trip hazard. So you need to always watch your step and where you walk, especially around equipment and installations on the floor like this employee's workstation. Other trip hazards are carelessly created by others when items are left on the floor. Obviously, carrying a large box like this hinders the employee's vision, and his risk of experiencing a trip is increased, but poor maintenance and housekeeping adds to the situation. It is tempting to walk or step onto a pallet left on the floor. This should be avoided, as pallet boards do break, and you are susceptible to a trip, fall, or twisted ankle. The same can be said for buckets or other non-approved steps. If you do not have the right equipment to reach where you need to go, ask your supervisor. Having guard railing may not be perfectly practical or installed. One way to protect yourself is keeping a lower center of gravity. Never climb on electrical equipment and into an area where there is no fall protection. This may require a lifeline and harness system. You should always climb down from equipment or down a ladder facing it to ensure you have visibility of the rails or handholds and to maintain a strong grip. Plus, you'll have better footing. Don't get tempted to face outward even for small heights, such as simply getting off your forklift. If you come down facing outwards, you'll have more difficulty maintaining 3-point contact, a power grip, footing with the ball of the foot. No matter what you're on or off, it's possible to maintain contact with something in your hands. Notice how his gloves and tie-down bar after his feet firmly on the ground. That this puts the oil can sanitizer first before climbing up. Keeping your whenever you use the ladders and going up or down. As you can see, place the block on the platform out of the way halfway before he climbs the ladder. He climbs back before he grabs the block again. The same concept can be applied when using stairs. You need to have your hands free, as this greatly increases your risk of falling down the ladder or stairs. Ideally, it is best to have both hands on each rail, but if you can't, at least put the two-way radio away before climbing down. If you slip or lose your footing, you increase your chances of a more severe injury because you were not mindful of where your hands were. And by the way, jumping from a platform or from the cab of a vehicle is strictly prohibited. We've all heard the phrase, "Your mother doesn't work here, clean up after yourself." Not only is good housekeeping important at home, it's important in the workplace as well. To some people, the word housekeeping calls to mind cleaning floors and surfaces, removing dust, and organizing clutter. And it does. But in a work setting, it means much more. Housekeeping is crucial to safe workplaces. It can help prevent injuries and improve productivity and morale, as well as make a good first impression on visitors. It is important to understand that it is everybody's job to clean up. Regardless of how well housekeeping is usually maintained at your plant, realize that conditions always change, even within the last few minutes. Items get left on the floor, sometimes at no particular person's fault. Just because you didn't leave the mess, or even if it's not your department as you're walking by, let's say from the break room, it doesn't mean you shouldn't pick up the tool or item from the floor. Housekeeping is a reflection of you and your plant safety culture. Have a good attitude about it. Clean up around you, and safety, production, and quality fall right in. personal protective equipment, or PPE, is the safety of your plant. Without the use of PPE, the risk of injury can be much hazard at plants cannot be completely eliminated. PPE be used to protect you. Think of PPE as a last defense. While your plant is required to provide most PPE at no cost, it is also your responsibility that you use this required in a correct manner and attempt to normal wear is understood. It shows that the PPE being used, but abuse and constant loss of PPE is not acceptable and may be subject to disciplinary procedures. Eye protection is required at all our plants. The most common are basic safety glasses, but there are other forms, including glasses with side shields and goggles. First, ensure that safety glasses are worn correctly. They should fit snugly on the bridge of your nose. Safety glasses should not be worn with the bridge of the glasses at the tip of the nose, and they should not be loose or too tight. All eye protection must conform to ANSI Z87.1 standards, and you'll see that through a marking on the side. There are different types of eyewear for different hazards, but most will protect you against small flying particles and dust. When working with finer dust, such as Portland cement, goggles that seal around the head should be used. Keep in mind that your normal prescription eyewear may not meet ANSI requirements. There are goggles that fit over glasses, and side shields on prescription eyewear is another option, but check with your manager first on the job-specific rules for allowing those. If you are working outdoors, then safety glasses that are darkened to protect against the sun should be used, but be careful not to use shaded safety glasses indoors as it will impede vision and potentially cause an accident. Again, eye protection is required when working in our plants, so be sure to wear them at all times of exposure. The last line of defense for protection from dust is the respirator. Depending on the plant, the line of work you do, or the air sampling results, you may be required to wear one, whether it is a full-face cartridge respirator or a simple dust mask. Keep in mind that a dust mask is considered a respirator in the eyes of OSHA, so treat that dust mask just like any other respirator. The first part of any respirator program is to make sure you are medically capable of wearing it. This means passing a medical exam by a healthcare professional. The second part is going through what we call a fit test upon hire and every year. This test puts you through several exercises, so to speak, to prove that the respirator fits the contours of your face and that dust doesn't enter through the sides. It's up to you to wear the respirator every day like the way you passed this test. The typical process for donning a dust mask should involve cupping it over your face and chin, then pull the top strap over your head, resting it high at the back of your head. Pull the bottom strap over your head and position it around your neck and below your ears. Be sure not to crisscross your straps. If the top nose section of the mask has a metal nose piece or strip, make sure to mold it down onto your face with both hands. Each time you don a respirator, you have to perform a seal check. Different masks require slightly different procedures, but typically during a seal check, you have to block all or certain portions of the mask inlets, and you'll need to inhale or exhale to see if there's any leakage of air coming in from the top, bottom, or sides. It is company policy to do this self-fit test right after you put on the respirator. Again, if you do not wear the respirator like the way the manufacturer says you should, then you won't be able to take advantage of your respirator's protection factor. Don't be surprised when your supervisor comes around and warns you about your improper wear. Plus, be aware that facial hair is not allowed by company policy and by OSHA, as it can hinder the respirator seal, reducing the respirator's effectiveness. You are required to either trash an unusable dust mask away or store your respirators in a clean bag or area and not carelessly around your plant. Also, it goes without being said that makeshift face covers are not allowed. By following these rules and the rules on using ventilation and good work practices, you and your fellow coworker will be protected from dust and silica. Your plant is in a hearing conservation program, and you most likely will be required to wear hearing protection at your workstation. There are various types, but the typical ones available to you are disposable earplugs. If levels are very high, like 105 decibels, then double hearing protection may be required. Your manager will let you know what types are available and/or required, whether at your normal production workstation or during certain maintenance activities such as mixer cleanout. Keep in mind that stereo headsets and/or earphones for music listening are not allowed in high noise areas of your plant. When wearing hearing protection, make sure that you are wearing the earplugs correctly so that you are taking advantage of the noise reduction capabilities of the earplug. They should fit snugly and should not cause discomfort. If the earplugs continue to be uncomfortable, notify your supervisor. And replace hearing protection as needed to ensure clean use, as dirty earplugs can cause an ear infection. Foot protection exists in various forms, and your plant has site-specific requirements for footwear. The minimum requirement at our plants is for foot protection to be in the form of a sturdy work shoe or work boot. It should be made of a strong leather material or other type that is rigid enough to protect a foot from various hazards, such as minor pinch points, light weights being dropped, and other hazards such as objects with sharp edges. Open-toed shoes are prohibited in our plants. Your plant may have stricter requirements, such as steel-toe shoes. During the cold winter months, your plant may also require the use of ice cleats to be worn or strapped to your shoes if your work takes place outside in icy or snowy conditions. Good work shoes or boots are designed to be slip resistant. Shoes with flexible soles provide a better grip. Look at the soles of your boots on a regular basis to make sure they are not worn out. Depending on the hazards of your job, hand protection may be required in the form of gloves. Leather work gloves can be useful to prevent cuts and nicks and scratches when moving material. Cloth gloves with grip material can both minimize exposure to minor abrasions, exposure to cement dust, and help with gripping bags. Chemical-resistant gloves are, however, more useful to protect an employee against certain chemicals, such as corrosives. This includes neoprene gloves, filling propane, and voltage-rated gloves for electrical work. Gloves you use fairly. Over gloves can be a hazard to machinery. Gloves or no gloves all around in running nip points may be or plant you work may be required to wear a hard hat due to the material of. It is important to wear your head protection to protect your head and therefore your brain. Always wear the suspension of the hard hat the correct way. If the suspension system is not worn correctly, it could make the difference between life or death. Wearing your hard hat backwards is an OSHA violation. And so is wearing the straps of your respirator over the hard hat. So put your hard hat on after you don the respirator. Inspect your hard hat on a daily basis to make sure that it is in good condition, making sure that the suspension is not torn and the shell is not cracked or bent. Again, always store your hard hat properly. We have discussed major types of PPE used during normal operations, but there are other types of PPE to be used during certain tasks. Maintenance personnel are required to wear specialized personal protective equipment such as welding hoods or fire-retardant clothing during cutting and welding. Arc flash PPE is needed when working around potential live electrical components. You may have to wear special PPE when changing out the LPG tanks on your forklift. Safety vests, when out in the yard, should be used. Although PPE is considered the last line of defense, it is a vital part of the safety program at your plant, so wear it consistently.